Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Dorn. We are 4 weeks into our 10-week sprint to the finish line. We're taking our fifth look at the ACC here today. It's changed a little bit since we started out. I was looking back at our first pod, and I think Virginia was like a 6 or a 7 seed. NC State was definitely on the wrong side of the bubble for both of us. A little bit has changed. How are you feeling about we both have 10 teams in right now, but let's start right at the top with what do you think the over-under is? Even though we both have 10 in, I feel like 8.5 is probably the number.
Yeah, that's what I would go with. I feel strong about everybody from that like NC State, SMU above. I think all those teams are going to be just fine. Once you get down into the Miami, Cal, Virginia Tech of the world, I think probably one of those teams makes it. I don't think two or even three, like definitely not feeling like three of them make it. But even two seems more unlikely. I think it's probably going to be one of those three will end up getting in.
Yep, and that segues directly into the spreadsheet. Where are we at here? Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, we got a little bit of a spoiler there. I got to insert. There we go. So I think these five are definitely safe. I don't know how much we really want to talk about any of them. Clemson, I thought just their sheer lack of quality wins made them, maybe susceptible to falling out, but I used the old what's it called, team cast on Torvik and put in, even if they were to lose these three biggest games at Duke, at North Carolina versus Louisville, but they win everything else. I think they maybe have one other quad one game against either NC State or SMU or something. But if they were to finish, that would be what, 24-7, they would be the top 8 seed. Again, that's not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. Things can happen unpredictably, but looks like they would be very solidly in. I think they're a classic case of what you've alluded to in the past of just there's value in just winning games, even if you don't really pick up much quality along the way. So anything else on these top five teams that you want to touch on where I don't think the Duke Michigan conversation at 2-3 is even worth getting into since they'll be playing each other in 19 days.
Well, I mean, let's just look really quickly at the overall records there. Obviously, Duke is a lock at 20-1. Virginia is a lock at 18-3. I don't think North Carolina and Clemson are total locks, even though I think they're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But what really catches my attention is Louisville, and it's not for missing the tournament. I think Louisville is going to be totally fine missing the tournament. But just look at those top three wins: Indiana, first Kentucky, versus SMU. Do we have the same exact situation going on that happened with Louisville last year, where all of their metrics seem to indicate a pretty good seed, but you look at the wins and you're like, where is that one big win? I know we've talked about it, Kerry, but you and I both have them at 22 and 23. Like we're talking about, we see this deficiency and we're still ranking them with a great overall seed position. I'm not I'm not sold on Louisville being there. As I'm going to think as we continue this march towards March, a little bit more about where Louisville is. I don't be surprised if I end up moving them pretty significantly at some point. Like maybe it's just a win that's not or a loss that's not even a bad loss, and I just plummet them. And I think that could be coming up for Louisville. I'm a little nervous if I'm a Cardinals fan about where I'm going to be seated because we don't have that big win. And even a team like Clemson, you can look at them. Yeah, maybe they don't have a big win either, but they are 18-4 and you are 15-6. I think a hammer could potentially drop on Louisville's seed.
I'm gonna share a different screen real quick. Let's play the team cast game with Louisville here. Did that switch? Is that showing now on your end?
I can see it.
Or you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, good, good, good. All right. We'll give them a win against Notre Dame. What do you think? At Wake Forest
Yeah.
could go either way, but we'll give them a win for now. Home game against NC State, they should win that. I would hope they can win the neutral game against Baylor. At SMU, we'll call that a loss just to mix things up. they should beat Georgia Tech. At North Carolina, that should be a loss. At Clemson, questionable. I mean, they'll probably go 1-1 in those NC State and Clemson games, so we'll call this one a loss. And then the other two are wins, sure. Even though at Miami is no guarantee. Let's see what that says for Louisville. I don't know yet. Dun, 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 dun. 5 seed. Wow. I was expecting more like a top 8 line. So
Well, I think that's where the computers come in and see really good efficiency for Louisville. I don't think the committee would see it the same way. I think the computers probably would have told you Gonzaga deserves a pretty high seed last year as well. I don't know that the committee is going to see it that way. So, not to say that these things can't be better than us. Sometimes these computers absolutely do beat us in putting teams into certain seed lines. I just don't think Louisville's going to get that break from the committee if they don't have at least one or two wins that jump off the page. And right now they don't.
yeah. So that would be with those results that we put in there, that'd be they add 2 quad 1 wins, they pick up 3 quad 1 losses and don't pick up any bad losses. So yeah, I guess that does improve their resume from what it is right now. I guess probably should have fiddled with some, if they take a bad loss to exactly your point. Like they don't have those great wins, but the best thing about their resume is that they don't have any terrible losses. I mean, even at Stanford, that's almost a quad 1 result. And I think Stanford had Chisholm Akbara back then, so it was a little bit of a different game for sure. But we think all 5 of these teams are going to make it. It's just fun to kind of look at them every now and then. Let's go down to the teams we're not so sure of. And the first two, SMU and NC State, we are reasonably confident will get in. You have NC State a little bit ahead of SMU. I have them a little bit behind. We can argue that right now if you want to, but I think they're both in that 8-9, 7-8-9 range either way.
Yeah, I think NC State is an interesting one because you made a point yesterday night on Twitter that they don't really have the great wins outside of at Clemson, but you just add it all up and wow, they're 10-5 against quads 1 and 2. There are not many teams in the country that have a 10-5 mark or better against quads 1 and 2. That's really impressive if you just look at it numerically. The wins
Yeah.
don't really resonate the same way, but I do think there's value in both. I think there's value in what does the committee look at per team and like who are they looking at individually. I also think there's a certain point where it's like nobody lucks into 10-5 against quads 1 and 2. You got to be pretty good to go 10-5 against quads 1 and 2. And you add NC State's efficiency metrics, you add a coach that we all think is pretty talented, you add a team that we all think is pretty talented. Kind of adds up for me that, yeah, maybe this team deserves a little bit better seed than their resume metrics would indicate.
I do think it's going to be really funny if, right, because all of NC State's they have a home win over 72, a home win over 73, and a home win over 74. Syracuse, Wake Forest, and Liberty. They could go from 10-5 against quads 1 and 2 to 7-5 against quads 1 and 2 in a Saturday's worth of refresh. I think it'll be funny to watch how some people react to that. You'll get a sense of who just looks at quad records when they're doing their brackets. But yeah, I mean, I think they're both relatively safely in, not as safely as Louisville and Clemson by any means, but I think they would both need to really collapse in order to miss the field at this point. These other three, though, boy, that's going to be interesting. And I thought this was interesting in putting this together. If Virginia just holds serve at home, if they beat NC State, if they beat Virginia Tech, if they beat Miami, none of those teams are picking up, marquee wins. Now, NC State does have a home game against Duke. Virginia Tech at NC State, I mean, or at UNC, that's pretty solid. Nobody's going to, be like, oh, that's not that good. But winning at Virginia is the best thing 3 of these 5 teams could do. And if the Cavaliers hold serve, I think it probably is an 8-bid league.
It'll be interesting to see what happens looking at Cal's record in potential games that they've got coming up. I guess not potential games they do have coming up. Just not particularly hard. And then you compare that to Virginia Tech. They go to UVA, to UNC, to Clemson, to Miami is still yet to come. NC State, they've got to go to NC State. Like, that's a wow. Like,
Yeah.
If I'm trying to make the tournament, that's opportunities for quality wins, but you need to pull up at, I don't even think an upset is good enough. You probably need two pretty sizable upsets on the road. I like Virginia Tech's chances least of anyone here just because I do not want to go on the road for those games. Cal is kind of an interesting situation because you get Clemson, that's a chance for a win over a tournament team. You get SMU, also a chance for a win over tournament team at home. I would tell you if it wasn't for the schedules, I'd give Cal the worst chance of any of these teams. But given the schedules, like I actually think it's a pretty good opportunity to pick up more wins against tournament teams. Miami is probably the best team here, in my opinion. And I think if there was one team I think's going to do it, it's probably Miami. But the schedule I like the best is Cal's. The schedule I do not want to play is Virginia Tech's.
I think I agree with you that Miami's probably the best team. I mean, obviously the qualitative or quality metrics support that 40.7, 60, 64.7, but their best wins are just not good. They don't have anything close to a win over the field. I made this point on yesterday's pod. They are winless against the Ken Palm top 60, and they have home losses to Cal and Florida State. I think the more you dig into Miami's resume, the uglier it looks, aside from just the fact that they only have five losses. And if that's good enough, I mean, George Mason's comfortably in. Santa Clara probably should be ahead of Miami. I have Santa Clara as my first team out, Miami is my last team in, and I was tempted to make that switch when I was really scrubbing the field last night. But I'm with you on Cal. Like they're almost going to get in by default at this point, just because as long as they hold serve in the games that they should. You see here, they Clemson, SMU at Syracuse. What I'm trying to look. They also have at Wake Forest, so that's like a borderline quad one, quad two. Aside from that, they still have two games against Georgia Tech. They have a game at Boston College, a home game against Stanford, a home game against Pitt. Like those are games you would expect any sort of bubble team to win 99 times out of 100. Well, maybe 91 times out of 100. So it's not gonna help their wins above bubble, but that's not what they need. They just need to pick up wins, and I think they'll be okay. So I agree. I think of these three teams, they're probably most likely to get in. But if I had to pick one of these three teams to make it to the second round of the tournament, Cal would be my last pick. I don't think they're that good.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely think Virginia Tech is the bottom rung here for who makes it in. I just think if they can win a couple of those games, they're going to make it easily because the wins would jump off the page. I just don't think they're going to pick up a couple of those wins, and man, that's a tough road to hoe for a bubble team. For Miami, I look at UVA, at NC State, and UNC. It's where it starts to get into a judgment call. How good do you think Miami actually is? I do think they'll pick up at least one win there, maybe two. If they pick up two, I think Miami is definitely going to the tournament. If they pick up one, I think it's a little bit iffy. But I do think Miami is going to get one there. So I don't know. It's a really interesting call on would you rather be Cal or Miami right now? And I really don't have a strong answer or opinion either way because both of those teams have a good path to the tournament. I don't know that either is going to take advantage of it. I do think one of these three will probably get in. It's going to be either Cal or Miami.
So, in addition to those three, at Virginia, at NC State versus North Carolina, Miami also plays. They have a home game against Louisville. They have a road game against SMU. So they've got five tough games left, similar to Virginia Tech, except Virginia Tech's already saddled with those seven losses. Miami just has the five. So classic bubble stuff at the beginning of February. Again, I would set the over under at 8.5. I think two of these three ultimately fall out, and it seems like we're in agreement that Cal's probably most likely to pull it off. What was the last thing I was going to do? And I'm unable to click on it. Call your shot on tomorrow's game, SMU against NC State.
Hmm.
It's
I
it's
think
at
NC State's going
SMU.
to win, even though it's at SMU. When I went to seed these teams, SMU and NC State, I really got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I like SMU's resume a little bit better, but I do think there's just the human element of I just think NC State's better, period. And that's what I ultimately kind of came out to. And again, I think NC State's better. I think they're going to win, even though it's at Moody Coliseum.
Be interesting. I'm looking forward to. I mean, I know they won't necessarily be guarding each other, but Boobie Miller against Darian Williams, two guys who could be in the mix for all ACC first team, but we'll see who can get that win tomorrow night. That'll wrap us up for today. Until next time, take care and enjoy the hoops.